Ever feel like your organization is just drowning in data, but absolutely starving for actual insights? Yeah, you're not alone. Today, we're going to dive into a concept that's designed to fix that exact problem: data mesh. And trust me, it's way more than just another tech buzzword. It's a completely new way of thinking about how we can finally tame data chaos and unlock its real value.
All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll dig into the big problem that data mesh was created to solve. Then we'll explore its core ideas. And finally, we'll get real about what it actually takes to make it happen in the real world.
So let's kick things off with the problem itself. You see, so many organizations are still running on data platforms that were built for a totally different era. They're centralized, they're monolithic, and let's be honest, they're really starting to crack under the pressure of today's business needs.
I want you to ask yourself this. Have you ever waited, like weeks, for what should have been a simple data request? Or worse, have you ever finally gotten the data you needed, but you just couldn't trust it? If that sounds familiar, you're seeing the classic symptoms of a system that's been pushed way past its limits.
And this right here gets to the absolute heart of the issue. In a typical centralized system, you have one single data team trying to serve, well, everyone. It's kind of like having just one library for an entire country, with a massive line wrapping around the block. It just creates these huge bottlenecks, slows everything down, and you end up with a culture where nobody really feels like they own the data or are responsible for its quality. So what's the fix? Well, it's not just about buying better technology. It's about a fundamentally different approach. And this is exactly where the data mesh paradigm enters the picture. At its core, data mesh is a pretty radical idea. It's not just an architectural change, it's an organizational one too. The big idea? Stop trying to hoard all the data in one central place. Instead, you give the power and the responsibility to the people who actually create and understand the data in the first place. The difference here is, well, it's night and day. The old way is that single, totally overwhelmed library we talked about. A data mesh, on the other hand, is more like a whole network of specialized bookstores, and each one is run by an expert. The finance team has their bookstore, marketing has theirs, and so on. This doesn't just promote agility, it fosters a real, genuine sense of ownership. So how do you actually build this kind of decentralized system? Well, it all comes down to 4 core principles. You can think of these as the essential pillars holding up the entire data mesh structure. Okay, first up, you give ownership to the domain experts. The finance team owns finance data. Simple, right? Second, you require them to treat that data not as a messy file, but as a high-quality product for others to use. Third, you give them a self-serve platform so they have the tools to actually build these data products. And finally, you wrap it all in a federated governance model. That's how you make sure everything stays secure and can still talk to each other. Now, of those 4 principles, this one, data as a product, is the real game changer. This is about a massive shift in mindset. We're moving away from seeing data as just some messy byproduct of our operations, and we start treating it as a valuable, reliable product that people actually depend on to do their jobs. So what actually turns a random data set into a real product? Well, it's got to be easy to find. It needs to be simple to access and crystal clear to understand. But you know what? Above all else, it has to be trustworthy. Because if people don't trust the data, the entire system just falls apart. This quote just nails it. You're not digging through some cryptic database anymore. You're hitting a clean, stable API endpoint, like a predictable web address, but for your data. It's a clear contract. The producer of the data promises quality, and the consumer knows exactly what they're going to get every single time. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. We're already seeing it in action all over the place. In retail, marketing and sales teams can combine their data products to build a truly complete view of the customer. In banking, teams like risk and compliance can operate as their own independent but still interconnected data domains. It's an incredibly powerful and adaptable model.
Now, as amazing as all this sounds, let's be realistic for a second. Implementing a data mesh isn't like flipping a switch. It's a journey, for sure, and it has its own set of challenges that you absolutely need to be ready for.
The key here is to see these challenges not as roadblocks, but as solvable problems. The biggest hurdle, by far, is cultural change. So investing in training and education is non-negotiable. To keep things from becoming the Wild West, you automate your governance. And please, don't try to boil the ocean. You start small, with just 1 or 2 domains, and build from there. So if you're thinking this might be right for your organization, here's a great little starter checklist. First, get crystal clear on who owns what data. Then, build a catalog so people can actually find these new data products. Use those APIs we talked about to make access easy, and automate everything you possibly can. A structured approach like this is going to be your best bet for success. If you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. Data mesh is not something you can just buy off a shelf and install. It's a deep socio-technical shift. It means changing your technology, yes, but more importantly, it means changing your culture, your teams, and how your entire organization fundamentally thinks about data. And really, that brings us to the final thought. The success of a data mesh, when you boil it all down, hinges on the answer to this one question. Is your organization culturally ready to empower its teams, to foster accountability, and to finally treat its data not as a liability, but as its single most valuable product? That's the real question to think about.